Serious, former inmates of Reddit, what's solitary confinement really like? I was placed in solitary in TDCJ for 2 weeks for being set up with a shank and a scribbled note saying I was going to murder someone. Sheet sucked. South Texas heat in an enclosed space with no direct facing fan was brutal. I read the same book several times, that stupid glittering vampire book for teens, and masturbated till I couldn't anymore. And when I finally saw a guard or SSI, in-armed worker, I tried to get smokes and some weed and talk a little bit. It was definitely hell. I'll go on the run before I go back to that sheet. That incident made me lose my low risk clarification, which meant I couldn't go out of prison grounds for work. I had been mowing parts of the city with an officer riding by every hour on horseback. Then I got stuck on laundry. I definitely started having visual hallucinations like color changes and stuff and slight shape distortions. I spent 8 months in solitary confinement when I had just turned 18. I had done nothing wrong except turn 18 in a juvenile facility. Everything was white. White walls. White painted window. Thin white blanket against the artificial cold. White light on every hour of the day and night was just a memory. I was allowed 1 magazine a day, and I soon ran through their small stack of magazines. There was nothing except some scant food pushed through the door sometimes only twice a day. Rotten milk that made me sick. No visitors. 3-minute phone call once a week if I was lucky. I cried when I woke up, praying to God that he would take me at night. I never believed before. I tried to heal myself by trying my bra around my neck, but I ripped it off instinctually as I was losing consciousness and I wept. I did not know when it would end and one day it just did. I was locked up for 3 days. Because of the nature of my arrest, I was put into protective custody. It was basically a small enclosure with a toilet, sink and steel bench. Lights are on 24/7. I was across from another cell with 8 guys, so they knew I was in there for something bad. They tried to get my attention. I was fed twice a day. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the morning and a burrito at night. I could not shower, brush my teeth or even make a phone call. Pillows or toilet paper. The cell reeks of urine and vomit. The biggest mind duck was not knowing how much time had passed. You did not know what day it was or if it were day or night. The anxiety is unbearable. You start to think of ways to get out, dead or alive. The scariest thing is the belief that someone will forget about you and you will starve to death, or if another Katrina happened and the guards will leave you to die. The guards are pretty sadistic. I understand that they have to be tough. I was eventually bailed out and my legal case got resolved. I did 2 days in solitary the first time I ever got in any trouble with the law. I was in jail for 6 days. 2 of which were in solitary confinement. There's no other feeling like it. Still to this day I can't stay in a room without windows without the door open. As if it wasn't bad enough being in solitary, I was also detoxing. Just imagine. 4 white walls. No windows. A light that stays on 24/7. A 1-inch thick pad to lay on and a toilet and alcohol withdrawal. It was so awful. I cannot even imagine spending more than a week in there. I'd go completely insane. Little late to the party. I was in solitary confinement for about a week as a 16-year-old in a juvenile detention facility about 5 years ago. I had a light on and was able to have staff bring me books. I got put in there after yelling at a court-ordered therapist for advising the judge not to let me out to go to my grandmother's funeral. I would say having to mourn her death that first week as a 16-year-old by myself for 23 hours a day was a traumatic experience. My life forever changed in good ways and bad ways after this happened. And up to this day I have pain for never being able to say goodbye to my grandma. Just a little side note. The night before my grandma passed I had a dream she was in and she told me my grandpa was going to die. My grandpa is still alive to this day, but I lost touch with him since my grandma died, and I think that was what she was trying to communicate to me. I didn't understand at the time. I was manic at 18 and spent 3 weeks in solitary. I was allowed 1 book at a time. I worked out, slept, and read and drew a lot. This was in city jail. I still thought it was real peaceful and had a nice time to find myself. I slept about 15 hours a day. The lights are always on. They do give you a book every Sunday if you behave enough. They gave me a book called Man in the Wire Cage for my first book. I laughed at the irony there. Maybe the only smile I had in there. You don't get to talk to anybody. There's also a camera on you at all times even if you're taking a dump. The guy in the cell next to me was on a hunger strike and would yell every hour of every day and you could hear them trying to force feed him. Which almost always resulted in violence of some sort. It's hell. Pure hell. I did 3 months in a 3-person cell by myself. Got to shower out of the cell but other than those 5 minutes I was locked in 24 hours. Honestly not bad at all. Basically sleep. Count meals so I don't get confused about the time of day. And watch whatever was on TV. It's not as bad as some think. I served time as a juvenile for almost a year in a Canadian detention center. After a dispute between me and another inmate. We were both sent to solitary confinement for 72 hours. He may have been longer, I'm not sure. In my case, solitary meant 23 hours alone indoors with a bed and toilet. We got 2 meals a day. Never spoiled or moldy. Just unseasoned. They were small portions but not enough to starve somebody. People generally didn't scream or bang on the walls because there was no motivation to. Despite how it is often portrayed. My experience, and those of friends that have served hard time in maximum security adult prisons, was not torture. It was simply boring. In the hole it's really shitty. You wake up. Have no idea what time it is. You can't tell if it's day or night. I was in a cell with nothing but a roll of toilet paper for 2 weeks. Guards don't even talk to you. They just hand you a tray of food and leave. Then they come pick it up whenever they feel like it. You get a shower if they feel like it. The shower is so small your ass nearly touches the cold wall while you're standing directly in front of the water. Most days I didn't shower cause what's the ducking point, ya know. Worst 2 weeks of my life. If you're curious why I was in the hole, it's because a few guys were trying to beat up 18-year-old me. They threw me in the hole for 2 weeks for my protection. What a terrible 2 weeks. They put you in 23-hour lockdown. Only come out for a shower in the pod or if disciplinary feel attached to your cell. Between 4 AM to 11 PM they take your mattress and all 3 daily meals are cooked into what they call a loaf. No books except a Bible, nothing else to do or use besides thoughts. Keep yourself occupied or you will go insane. Read. Read a lot. You'll start to go crazy after a few hours and fantasize about breaking out and or killing yourself. But it will come to pass. Though it reoccurs in waves. When you get out it may take a few days or even weeks to retain your speaking voice. I still have nightmares on the regular about it. 3 years out now. There's no end in sight. Source: did time in juvenile solitary lockup. Went in on a student with some emotional issues. Had symptoms of PTSD from severe child abuse that were never addressed beforehand. Came out with those symptoms heightened to the point that I can barely function. Even years of therapy later. My crime? I missed too much school. Being in and out of mental institutions and the like. Most comments are good, but there is one very important thing that I never saw mentioned anywhere. Maybe it was only in my case. But the confinement cell were on the upper floor of the prison in our case. Let me just tell you that with everything that you will read in this topic. The yelling. The crazy. The starving. The loneliness. The hardest for me was the sleepless night. There is no AC in prison and even less in confinement. Try to imagine yourself in a small room surrounded by 4 concrete walls with only small vents. Mostly for the smell, I always thought. It gets so hot during the summer. Sleeping is nearly impossible. I remember just being in sleep deprivation, always sweating. I just can't stand myself. My patience was completely gone. I was just unhinged, ready to pop. I understand fairly well those who can't handle it and go crazy. You can get used to anything. I spent 30 days in the hole at North Kern State Prison and did not want to go back to general population because I got used to it. I had other people in cells next to me and below me. We would throw long strings with paper attached to the end so we could pass notes. Food. And tea. Someone had tea in there and we would smoke it like tobacco. One person had a lighter made from the electrical outlet and he would light a toilet paper wick and throw it to different cells. I did 10 days for refusing a work assignment. Let someone else pick up trash along the highway. 8x10 cinder block cell. Locked up with a window. There must have been a little league field nearby. Because I enjoyed the click of aluminum bats and cheering most evenings. Cot fixed to wall on one side. On the other a single sheet metal fixture with toilet, sink, and useless opaque metal looking glass. Was made by Bayer as I recall. No movement other than to shower every third day. I remember after I was out a couple days. My legs were sore from just regular moving about. I've been locked up for 5 or 6 years of my life. I've done quite a bit in solitary confinement and it really depended upon the institution what it was like. If it was a bad place, I'd go to war. Duck it. Let's get crazy. If I got furious and wanted to fight, I could start one. Once you started it, the code said you had to follow it through. Because if you cuffed up you were a rich. But mostly it was working out. Eating. Sleeping. Reading and jacking off. At least until that got boring and then you started a fight with the COs. Hell yes. I already told my lawyer. But basically I was told that I was lucky additional charges weren't added to what I was there for. And that's how they handle people acting up like I was. And to suck it up. Oh. And I shouldn't have been there in the first place. All that shit. All in all, I was glad I hurt that bastard bad enough to embarrass him or whatever. Because that's all I'll ever get out of it. I realized after all of this happened. Of course. The truth of all of these things, but still I thought I was going to die in that place. That's what the feeling is I remember most. You're alone. And at someone else's mercy. There isn't anything you can do. Once you're in that system. Nothing. Edit. Oh. I got out the 16th of August 2015. And I still haven't gotten my money back either. $102.33. Well, I wasn't in jail. But I was in sort of a solitary confinement. When I was living with my dad. For a while he grounded me. During that punishment, I wasn't allowed out of my room to go pee or eat or shower without his permission. And I couldn't peek out of my room and ask either. I had to wait until my dad felt like asking me. He worked from 2 AM to the afternoon after I got out of school. And during those times, my family made sure I stayed in my room. I went to school and whatnot. But when I got there, I wasn't allowed to talk about anything at home. So, no one knew about my situation. If my teachers called him to say anything, my time would restart. And he never told me how long my punishment would end. It was until further notice. I had no TV. No phone. Nothing. Just clothes and a bed. No books. Nothing to draw with. etc. I decided to start sneaking out during the day to go to the library so that I couldn't go insane and try to off myself. My dad even threatened to move me into the garage so that he wouldn't have to see me. I should mention that I was like 13.